Hello. Oh, do you have to go over there to hear?
Yeah, I'll have to go on the YouTube
Okay. Should I just keep it with the mic? Oh.
until we start.
It's better to just take the 2 weeks and have it be.
Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. We'll be oh yeah, we'll be starting shortly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree. The
Ah,
link for
yes,
the
yes.
Zoom.
Let me.
Do you want me? I can just add it to the email off my telephone right now if it's easier than you doing it. Oh, do you have to add them as a participant?
I think so.
They can't
But
just
how
join.
do I?
Well, they're not senators, so how are they going to be able to join if they're not in the chat?
All right then. Hello.
Alberto,
Yeah.
Bobby.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you in person.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming and helping out with all the trial court stuff so
That's
far.
fine. Yeah. I'm guessing advisor typically sits in the back over there.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Here, manage channel. Wait, no, here it is. I'm just gonna add them to the.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
Margarita,
so-
who else?
Margarita.
Yeah, top one.
Aquí. Valen.
Valentina Riviera Rodriguez, yeah. And then yeah.
Trevor.
Yeah, top one. GTA.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect.
Basuna said they're fine with presenting.
We will be starting shortly, everyone. Thank you for being here.
We're
Also
still
on
gonna want to
time.
probably send them the link though.
Oh yeah.
Hola, Humbert.
Go in here real quick.
I told them they just needed to present the funding bill too, because in committees they had like this whole PowerPoint about their club.
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
like, you can just present the bill. You don't need to do all that in front
Yeah,
of the whole.
no, okay, sounds good. So they'll just with the bills, fine.
Yeah.
Okay. We can open presentations if they need, but you don't think it would be necessary?
I mean, if they want to, they can, but it's not for general funding of the club. It's for a specific event. So I don't know if presenting
Uh-huh.
about the club is necessary. Do you think it is?
Not really.
Okay.
All right. We'll be starting shortly. Oh, and feel free to grab each other still. Oh,
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone, tonight. I'm going to go ahead and call this session into order. The first item on our agenda here, I believe, would be approval of the minutes. And so do I have a motion to approve the minutes? See a motion from Holly, second from Stuart. All right, so we will now move to a vote to approve the cycle 4 minutes. If my computer wants to connect to Jayhawk. I think so. Just give it one reload here. All right, that'll be posting on the Teams now. Vote yes if you would like to approve the minutes, no if you would not like to approve the minutes, and abstain if you would like to hold out from voting. And I'll leave that open for about a minute and a half here. And a reminder that this is the first attendance vote for this meeting.
I don't like to do stuff after Senate. I don't like to do stuff after Senate.
And is there anyone in the chamber who hasn't had the ability to vote yet and or on the teams? All right, seeing no objections, I'll move to close this vote. And with a vote of 32 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. All right, now we'll be moving to the next item on our agenda, which is officer reports. And that will be delivered by me tonight since our student body president could not make it. So Humberto, could you take the chair?
All right, you can go ahead whenever.
All right. I would also like to give the first 2 minutes of my officer report here to allow Sadie Williams, our finance chair, to sort of explain the fee review process and sort of the need for representation on that committee in the next few weeks here.
Okay, hello everyone. Like Ethan so kindly introduced, my name is Sadie. I'm the finance chair. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about fee. So elections are going to be coming up at the beginning of next cycle in committees. So that is a week from today. If you have not been attending committees, I would encourage you and implore you to do so, not only because it's a part of your job description as a student senator, but also because it's incredibly important to the functioning of Student Senate as a whole. With Finance Committee and every single committee, they will be going through fee review elections. And so fee review is going to take place in February. It's typically the first week of February, although that hasn't been completely settled on yet, but expect it right around there of next semester. And so basically what it looks like is every single semester that you attend KU, you pay a fee. I think it's at around like something $480 right now, somewhere in there. And so you pay it. And then most people don't think about it ever again until the next time they have to pay their tuition and fees, right? And so we're actually the body that kind of decides what that fee is, and we propose that to the Kansas Board of Regents, who then approves it. And so it's a really big deal that we have, like, that we get to determine our own fees and what that is allocated towards. And so we have a variety of fee entities here on campus, from like transportation to Watkins, there's like health services on campus, lots of stuff in between there. As well as what we use to like allocate funding towards student groups. And so it's a really important job, is what I'm trying to say. It really matters. And it's like really important that we have representation on there. And so if you do want to run for fee review and things, then you need to attend committees on next Wednesday. You do not have to be a voting member of a committee to be elected. So that is something to keep in mind. If you have not been attending committees and you're like sitting here like, oh my gosh, I forgot that was a requirement. That is okay. Go to the committee of your choosing, from their student rights, university affairs, diversity and inclusion, and then finance committee. So attend one of the 4 committees. If you need more information, you can ask like Ethan or Humberto, myself. I know the other chairs are in here as well. And so just keep that in mind. And the timeline, like the time commitment of it, is there's going to be 3 trainings in the month of November. Each of them are just going to be an hour to an hour and a half long. It's not going to be wild. We'll try and work them around y'all's schedules as much as possible. And then the week of fee review, it's just basically like just for that week. So outside of that week, there's not a lot that you have to do or anything. It's just going to be for that week. You'll have meetings once a day is what it's looking like, for a couple hours. And then there's deliberations and things like that. It's really interesting. If you care about finances at all or fees, I encourage you to do it. If you just care about advocacy, I encourage you to do it. And so make sure you come to committees next week, because that's when it's happening. And I cannot express, like, this is one of the biggest things that like Student Senate does and that we talk about whenever we're talking about our student government, is this budget and like this fund that we maintain. This is where it comes from. And like this is where students get to actually have a voice of determining where that's going to go. So I encourage you all to do it. It'll be really good, and there's probably going to be like a lot of snacks involved. So at the very least, you have that coming for you.
Yeah. Are there any questions in regards to the fee review process? All right. Awesome. Thank you very much, Sadie. And yeah, I would encourage anyone who is interested in like how our student fees work and like how those affect our campus community to get involved in that. Next here, I'll just be reading off of this report here, and then I'll pause for questions at the end. The Student Senate has received notice, along with the rest of the KU community, that suspects have been identified in the vandalism that occurred at the Spencer Art Museum. This administration stands in solidarity with FINSA, the Indigenous community at KU, and in Lawrence as we evaluate what justice looks like after this incident in the eyes of our affected communities. At this point, it has been given to the district attorney's office for charging purposes, and so we're sort of waiting to see what the outcome of that case is going to be there. Next, we have the SSR Rewrite Committee that is continuing to meet this next week on Microsoft Teams this Friday from 12 to 2 p.m. And we'll be working out other meetings over the course of the next few weeks soon by Friday, I think at the latest for this week. Attendance hasn't been high over the course of our past few meetings, but we're still making good progress on the document overall and have started touching on like the budget code and the appendices that are relevant to that. Lots of fun terminology being thrown around in that committee if you're interested in sort of like the legal language that is in SSRR. But yeah, you don't need to understand that to sort of like have your own opinion on what this document is going to be. Ultimately, it is like sort of the charter that we bind ourselves to as a student government. And so having the ability to interact with that and comment on it, I think is very important, especially for our like legislative branch of government here that formulates it. And so, yeah, we are planning to get that passed by cycle 7 right here before we go into the winter break period. And that's sort of just to make sure that Student Senate is able to prepare and sort of like live with the document for about the entirety of winter break so that we can then proceed into spring as sort of like business as normal with a whole new constitution. But yeah, in collaboration, the next portion here with like Amanda Mullett from University Senate and our grad vice president, Holly, we were able to get student appointments onto nearly every single University Senate board. There are still some open spots that are available for folks who might be interested. But at least now we do have students on that board and sort of granting a voice in those issues that are being discussed in the University Senate, such as the program discontinuances that are becoming something of a theme over the past year or so. These appointments were able to be gathered through messaging and announcements that we made to the higher ed program, and we're hoping that that partnership can continue as we go through these next few years. Simply due to the fact that higher ed students, as part of their practical learning, often get grad assistantships. And so also engaging them in sort of like abilities to interact with shared governance, I think is also a helpful portion of their program if we can sort of build that into our recommendations there. Next, the student delegation met with the Board of Regents on Thursday morning where we discussed a plethora of topics amongst faculty and staff reps that were relevant to KU. This included the nature of the student fee increase, student wages, housing accessibility, gender inclusive housing, and student insurance policies. Honestly, a lot to cover, but I know that our student delegation of like Naya, Holly and I, Camden, and Faith did sort of execute that in a very positive way, and we got a lot of good conversation out of that with our faculty and staff representatives as well. And I believe Holly also had an update on the student insurance situation, a decision from the committee. So if you want to come speak to that.
So briefly, the Kansas Board of Regents like insurance committee, I don't really know what the name of it is, but I went. We deliberated for 3 hours today, and we came up with a proposal that will go forth to like 2 committees before it reaches the Board of Regents for approval. It looks like there is going to be an increase in student insurance, and that's basically because more people are claiming on insurance. Like they've had like 2.5 million claims, but only $600,000 worth of people paying their premium. And so there's like a deficit, they're losing money. So there is going to be an increase. It's going to be lower than what we were initially quoted, which is good. I can't say what it is, but that will probably be coming out in probably towards the end of the semester like it did last year. So for incentivized students, there'll be a small increase. It won't be as big as we did negotiate, and we got it lower. So that's kind of what I can say right now.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for that update, Holly, and hopefully we'll hear more as sort of those talks begin to happen with the Board of Regents. This meeting, I would ultimately say, was pretty eye-opening and laid some clear ground for how the Student Senate plans to engage with KBOR this year. Ultimately, we're going to sort of like try to formulate a public relations campaign to really speak to the needs that students are having on this campus, and to also educate students around the student fee and the services that are provided through that in the Student Senate and at KU at large. And then this next part of my report, I'm going to offer a trigger warning for sexual assault. Naya, Holly, and I met with the provost and chancellor on this past Friday morning. We discussed the need for a town hall regarding sexual assault that needs their attendance and the attendance of folks in student affairs from a meeting we had just a few weeks ago. We're hoping that this can open a dialogue with students in terms of like the topic of sexual assault. That meeting was just very helpful on a small level with like student leaders to sort of build the basis of knowledge and understanding of like how KU works with sexual assault cases at the university level. And we thought that that might be helpful if we had a town hall where we sort of like broadly gave those resources to students and involved parties like the Office of Student Conduct and Community Standards, as well as SAPAC, to sort of like discuss what those resources and options look like for students on the KU campus broadly. Next, we discussed some options with student housing training, some issues actually, and trans accessible housing options. This sort of coalesced into a conversation where we're sort of recognizing that student housing needs to have trans accessible housing in the SCHOL halls and in the residence halls. Student housing already has a gender inclusive housing program located in Lewis that takes up about half a wing of that building. What we're hoping to expand that to be is like having a trans inclusive SCHOL hall and res hall, where gender inclusive housing would allow trans residents and cisgender residents to recognize that that is a gender neutral space that allows for that accessibility for LGBTQIA plus students. And finally, we discussed the hiring timeline for a permanent vice provost for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The provost said that this plan is to have someone hired by the end of spring 22, so that they can sort of have a preparatory period on what their plan is going to be for the university at large. Next, Naya and our policy and dev director, Ari, are working on a warm clothes drive that they're hoping to make a permanent fixture in Student Senate's commitment to community service in the Jayhawk community. Collection is planned for throughout the month of November, with distribution via tabling in late November or early December, depending on the amount collected. So yeah, if you have any warm clothes in your closets or know folks that might have any, make sure to contribute to that drive as we go through this next month here. Next, the CCO is planning another COVID-19 testing drive in partnership with the Lawrence Department of Public Health, and will be engaging in some fun programs over the course of these next few weeks. One of those is this Friday. The Helping Unite Generations, or HUG program under CCO, will be hosting a pumpkin carving event at the Windsor of Lawrence from 10 to 12 p.m. on that morning. If you are interested in this or like any more fun community service events, make sure to go to volunteer.ku.edu, and you'll see that event and more where you can sort of like sign up to engage in community service in the KU community. Number 8 here, a community of randomly chosen senators will be convened by the Chief of Staff to appoint new judges to the Student Senate's judicial branch per SSRR. If you know anyone who might be interested in applying, please make sure to point them to the form located on our Senate Microsoft Teams for judicial applications. Oftentimes, our judicial branch is sort of the one that's lagged behind in terms of representation, especially at the beginning of the year here. But it is something really critical that we get filled, especially before we get into the spring 22 election season. Next, the old Student Senate website has been updated with Senate officers and funding information. Minimal maintenance will continue to take place on this old website as our communications director, Asia, starts to work on what the new website will look like and how that's going to be rolled out and published over the next few months. The focus of the new website has been oriented generally around 3 values of accessibility, communication, and aesthetics. Overall, making it a very understandable and aesthetically pleasing website to look at, while also communicating the information to students that needs to be communicated. And see, next, our government relations director, Bertie, has been preparing for holidays in higher ed and plans to send invitations out over the course of the next few weeks. Make sure to save the date on your calendars. It's going to be on the 2nd of December this year. And so if you're interested in meeting legislators and sort of getting involved with like what government looks like in Kansas and like how we can advocate at the Kansas State House, make sure to reach out to Bertie at govrel@ku.edu with any ideas that you might have, and yeah, interest in attendance. And also another thing that Bertie is working on is making sure that Big 12 on the Hill is planned appropriately, and we're sort of getting the price updates for like going to that, as well as making sure that like we get a ton of advocacy for interesting interested parties in DC. And last but not least, the internal demographic survey, as Max mentioned at our last cycle, will be coming out soon. It'll be posted on the MS Teams and through the Student Senate listserv. Members of the Student Senate are required to fill out this survey, as it gives us critical information about student representation in our student government, and overall provides good statistics for us to be able to analyze that and help communities like reach into Senate in the future. And with that, that'll be the end of my report there. So are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Ethan. Do folks have any questions for our Vice President?
Yes?
So the election rewrite committee, when are they going to meet? What's the timeline on that look like?
We don't have a specific election rewrite committee meeting.
Code rewrite committee.
No, I mean, as of right now, we're having the SSR rewrite committee meet as the one that's revising currently the elections code along with the rest of the document. As of right now, there hasn't been a specific committee formulated to revise the election code.
But there is, I got elected, so Devin and I are both on it. It's the elections code rewrite committee, and we haven't received any information about it. So my question is that going to happen, or do we just have to do that through the SSR rewrite committee?
I mean, not to my knowledge, at least, like I haven't been communicated about the terms of like the election code rewrite committee there.
So who do I need to contact to get that sorted out?
Just send an email to me.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Huh?
Just send an email to me.
Oh, yeah. Mary?
So, can I ask a follow-up, please? Or not a follow-up, I'm sorry.
Preface? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There you go. My first question is, you can't be a senator and be on trial court, correct?
That would be correct, yes.
So what is Student Senate doing to basically say that we're trying to find people for trial court in like judiciary branch? Because it seems like we're only talking about it in Senate to people that can't be.
I believe Humberto has more information since he's been leading that project there.
Yeah, actually, here it's like only mentioned specifically because of what you mentioned. So it's actually been promoted like in the law school, and we have had applicants already. The problem was that the committee that was going to be selecting the applicants and reviewing them had a bunch of senators that are no longer with us. So we had to reformulate the committee, but then this like got crossed by the hiring process for a new associate treasurer. So that's kind of where it's at right now. But it is being promoted actually everywhere except on the Senate. I just kind of mention it here. We mention it here so that folks can let other people know.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Moving forward here, we have the next item on our regular agenda here, Bill 21 to fund KU Rover Club.
All right. So we have a member, president actually of the Mars KU Rover Club. They will be presenting here just a little bit about what the club does and the funds that they're asking from us tonight. And I think here we present. There we go. All right. Yeah. Feel free to take over.
Thank you so much.
You will have 5 minutes to present.
Okay, perfect. I'll rush. Hi, for those of you that didn't see me last week, I'm Katrin Renier. I'm one of the co-founders and the president of KU Rover Club, which I'm here to talk to you about today. Who are we? KU Rover Club is an interdisciplinary organization, meaning that we're not just made up of engineering students, not only engineering students of all disciplines but civil, but we also have some business majors and we're recruiting microbiology, and we actually had some art history majors at one point. But basically any student at KU that is interested in building a Mars rover. And our goal is to compete in the Mars Society's University Rover Challenge, which is the premier competition for building Mars rovers. It's hosted every year in Utah, and we're hoping to well, right now we're picking up the pieces a little bit post 2020 and coming back together after losing all of our co-founders minus myself. And we're starting fresh with a bunch of new designs, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Our structure is basically comprised of 4 teams: mechanical and manufacturing, which is in charge of the structure and design of the rover; the computer science and electronics team, which is in charge of all basically the electronics and coding and programming for the different sensors and how the rover moves and operates; the finance and marketing team, which is here today to present to you guys and basically get funds and organize the team; and the science team, which is our newest team of the 4, which is basically in charge of designing and building the science module, which tests soil samples for life. Coolest team, I think, but I know nothing about it. So basically today we're looking for funding for our mechanical and manufacturing team and also our computer science and electronics team so we can build our new design for the chassis. We decided that, and I'll talk about that in a moment, we're going with 80/20, which is a really easy to manufacture aluminum build, and we have an entirely new team for our mechanical and manufacturing team that are all pretty much underclassmen, so it's the easiest for them to put together for our first prototype. And then we're also asking for 3D printing material, which is PLA, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. That's not what our robot looks like, but that's the material that we're using for it. And then we're also asking for motor materials, drivers, one backup because there was a miscommunication last year, and some shocks, wheels, and also batteries and a laser scanner for the computer science team to start learning how to program. So basically this is, in the top right-hand corner, you can see our old chassis design. It is a lot more complicated than our new chassis design. In the lower left-hand corner, that's also an incomplete CAD model that's missing 3 of its legs, but it is now complete since I sent this presentation. As you can see, the 80/20 is a lot easier to put together. For our robotic arm, which is what we're asking the 3D printing material for, we have a 6 degrees of freedom design, and we just started this design from scratch. The 80/20 has kind of prefabricated mesh for it, but the robotic arm is completely 100% from scratch. And these designs, both these models and the sketch is as of 2 weeks ago. So we're really getting the ball rolling. For future years, our goal is to have a fully computable rover that can make all of the mission requirements by 2023. But for the spring with this rover, we're just hoping to get one that will operate, if I'm honest, because engineering is a little difficult, if I'm honest. Why do we need funding? We're a young student organization. We are in our 3rd year, if I'm correct, and the first couple years we were just trying to get off our feet, and now we finally have 40 to 60 members participating and just in it, and we need funding to build something. So here's our budget, and basically the items that are highlighted in red are the ones that are most prominent, what we need to build within the next couple months. And all but one of those we're asking from you guys. I know this is the most that we've ever asked from Student Senate, but we're building things from scratch, as I said before, and we would really appreciate any funds we can get. In the upper right-hand corner, we have what we've asked for in the past. And I think that is, oh, yes, you can reach us on social media. Any questions? Yes.
All right, do we have any, oh, I see a question from Mary.
Hi, so first, don't worry, this is not a trick question.
No.
I just wanted to know what your club was doing to encourage DEI on campus.
Of course.
And before,
There we go. Before you answer that, we will need an extension on time. Holly?
Motion to extend time by 5 minutes.
All right, and do we have a second? All right, see a second from Stuart. All right, and do we have any objections in the space or on the teams to extending times by 5 minutes? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and extend time. And Mary, could I actually ask you to ask that question into this microphone here so we can, hear that on the teams as well.
Hello? Is it working? It is working.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I was just wondering what your organization was doing to encourage DEI on campus.
Of course.
Thank you.
Well, being an engineering organization, our primary goal is to build something. And of course, to build something, we need anyone and everyone with all these new ideas, no matter what your background, no matter how you identify yourself. And because of that, we've reached out this year not only to Engineers Rock the Block, but we also spent a good amount of time at the Union Fest. And we've also spent we have a new role on our business team that is primarily for social media and reaching out to those with fresh ideas. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, and also social events. That's what we're working on as well. Yes.
My question is this funding you would need every year, or is this like a one-time funding vibe?
Of course. Sorry, I'm super short. I can't. So, depending on the design of the rover, how we move forward past this first prototype, we will need to ask for more things. It won't be nearly this amount in the future. The biggest that we're asking for is for the 80-20, which is expensive, but it's because we're starting a fresh new team that doesn't really know how to manufacture things on their own yet, and that's the easiest way to do it. But it depends on, again, this competition's every year, but looking at the other teams from other schools, they refresh their ideas every year, but they don't necessarily build an entirely new robot.
Okay.
So we may, we'll be back, but not nearly as much.
Any other questions on the floor? See another question. I'll go with Martine first since he hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll go back to Mary.
You may have covered this already, but can you go just a little bit more in detail on like the timeline for this project? I know the competition is in August, but like with the way this funding works and building the rover, what months can we see the rover begin to come to fruition, et cetera?
Of course. So our main timeline is right now we're getting all of the designing and CADing done, the modeling for the 3D printing and for the manufacturing. We're hoping by the start of Christmas break, sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas break, we can start manufacturing and spend the entire break. Because the thing with engineering students, they love to build stuff, they love being a part of clubs, but they get caught up in classes, and it's difficult to spend the amount of time, the hours that we need for a manufacturing meeting. And then in the spring, we'll be concentrating on the science module, which is the biggest amount of work, if I'm honest. Any other, or did that answer your question? Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Mary's question is next.
I was just wondering if you would walk us through what kind of fundraising you've done so far.
Of course. So our first, we ask for FAC funding, which is from the engineering school through the advisory committee. And that is, as you can see from the second column, quarter one, we're not really looking for anything in quarter two because we're hoping to have everything by the spring. And that was mainly stuff for our registration for Robot Academy and the University Rover Challenge, and also a bunch of stuff for the EECS team so they can start coding. And then eventually, in the spring, we're going to reach out to endowment for our metal frame, which is an extension of the chassis, and it kind of holds everything together, and it'll also help with the science module as well. Also, departmental funding, I forgot that one. We asked for that before we approach FAC funding, and that's mainly through the aerospace department, but in the future years, we are hoping to reach out to the ECS department as well. Yeah? Or did that answer? Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Umberto, do you have a question?
So could you please explain why it would be important for KU to have a club like this and a rover? Why is it important that we fund this? How does it impact students? And how is it compared to like the Midwest or Kansas? Where does that position us?
Of course. I forgot to mention a really important piece of information. We are the first club to attempt to build a fully autonomous rover from Kansas. No other university is attempting this goal. It is a big recruitment tool for KU and engineering. From the student's perspective, design, build, fly, or in our case, design, build, execute clubs are very good tools to practice being an engineer in real life, because we get in these classes and it's very math heavy, but we never get to actually build stuff. So it's a motivational tool and also a great learning tool as well.
The motion.
Motion?
Call the question on the bill.
All right. And do I see a second? I see a second from Holly. Or no, a second from Holly. Second from Mary. Okay, perfect. All right. And is there any opposition in the chamber to calling question on the bill?
I have
Any opposition on the
I've
Teams?
had my hand raised for Zoom, not Zoom, for Teams.
All right.
ask a
Then we will
question.
go ahead and move towards a vote. And that'll be popping up on the Teams here shortly. It is Senate Bill 21, correct? Yes. Awesome. All right. Vote yes if you would like to approve this legislation, no if you would not like to approve the legislation, and abstain if you would like to stay out of this vote. And that'll run for about 1.5 minutes here.
Oh, I think that's that question. Yeah, and so here's the actual bill, FYI, just if you want to look at more specifically.
What's the total being asked for?
Let me see if it says here.
Like 5,000?
Do you know the total?
It's 5,000 something. It was on the last slide of my presentation.
Oh, okay,
That's
let
second
me
last
go to
one.
that. Here. Let me see if I can. Let me just put it here. There we go.
5,371.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah, you probably just want to announce that so people know.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So the total number being requested is $5,309. By the way, right here.
Let's see. I'm now seeing on the Teams that Wesley had a question. So we did move through with the vote, but Wesley, do you want to object to the vote to ask your question, or would you rather just move on?
Can you hear me at all? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
I know. All right. Oh, there's Wesley. Wesley, we currently cannot hear you here.
Everyone in the chat seems to be able to hear me.
If you could send it on the chat, I don't know why it's not sounding here. Let's see.
Okay, no, we can't hear them in the chamber here. So give us 1 second.
I don't know how to fix this. I think they should just type their questions in the chat. I guess
Hello? Can you hear me yet?
It would be on the volume.
Well, the volume's up though.
Huh?
The volume's up.
But you might have to change it on the computer.
Oh, let's see. Oh, this moves. Okay.
All right, click it. Okay, so that's working. It's just not doing the Teams audio.
That's weird. Let's see, Wesley, can you speak again?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Speaking currently, you can see
Oh,
the bubbles
okay,
there.
yeah, so we can't hear. Okay.
Can you click on the audio? Where
All right. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know why we can't hear on the Teams, but if you have any questions, send it over in the chat. I'll be make sure to be checking.
if we could just get you to maybe type your question, unless it's like a bit longer there. Currently working to see how we can fix that. But would you like to raise an objection and ask your question, Wesley, or would you like us to
Let's just move on.
move on? Well, I have to know. I need consent.
Hey Wesley, what's your question?
What percentage so far? Oh, Wesley did object.
Okay.
Ahmad, can you hear me at all?
All right. So Wesley has
everybody
objected
online
here
can hear
to
you.
moving forward to the question, and so we will now need to. If everyone could please be quiet. So unfortunately, we did have a senator that objected to moving forward to previous question. And so we will, unless the motion is retracted, have to move into a vote on whether or not we will continue here. The reason being that I didn't see the objection on the Teams, and that objection is valid, like still there.
So we will need to vote if we're going to call it a question.
Yes.
Unless they resign the motion. Yeah.
All right, we need 2 more votes to reach quorum on this vote. All right, and with a vote of 29 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this motion clearly passes, and we will end debate and call question on the bill.
Thank you.
All right. And yeah, I'll just, unfortunately we can't because it's sort of like a timeline thing, it wouldn't work. Yeah, on approving. All right, it has been posted. Same instructions as last time. And we will give about 1.5 minutes here for votes to come in on the bill.
Oh no. Also, by the way, so Ethan's battery died, so it's my laptop. So if it's in Spanish, I apologize. All right, is there anyone in the chamber and or on the teams that hasn't had the ability to vote on this matter? All right, I hear no one in the chamber. Is there anyone on the teams? All right, seeing and hearing none, we will go ahead and move to close the vote. All right,
And with a vote of 31 in the affirmative and 0 in the negative and 1 abstention, this motion clearly passes. Awesome. And now we will be moving on to our next item of legislation here. And I believe that is a resolution. Or, nope, that's the SSRR amendment.
Yeah. So this SSRR amendment is very straightforward. We are just saying that funds should not be used for subscriptions of any kind. It's for a lot of different reasons. It's just easier, and it doesn't get into a bunch of financial difficulties. So that's it. It's just this amendment right over here. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Oh, I see a motion from Holly. Motion to call to question, and do I see a second from Farzad? Yes. All right. I did see some questions on the floor, so is there any objection in the chamber and or on the teams to calling question on the bill? All right. I see no objection in the chamber. Is there any on the teams? And I'll allow like 20 seconds for people to type that in the chat. Oh, Wesley, do you have your hand up for an objection?
Send it in the chat, please. Oh, here.
Maybe.
There we go. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Woohoo.
Wait, was that Hamad?
Yeah. Fixing our problems
Oh, love it.
from the further.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. And yeah, seeing that I'm not really getting a response there, I'm going to say that there are no objections to this action and move towards a vote.
The bassoon? No. Oh, okay. Just table it?
Yeah, you said table it because the person said anybody to come to present a solution.
Okay.
All right, it'll be posting on the teams now. Do you approve Bill 22-23? Yes, if you would like to approve this amendment to SSRR. No, if you would not like to, and abstain if you would like to stay out of this vote. Reminder that this does take a 2/3 majority to pass. And once again, about a minute and a half before voting. Oh yes, I'm double checking the votes to see if they went through, and if not, then I'll allow them to vote on the chat. All right, Olivia and Diego, we did get your votes, or I'm sorry, Laura and Diego, we got your votes here. So Even though it says that there is an error message, we have received those. All right, and with that, all right, is there anyone else in the chamber that hasn't had the ability to vote on this matter? And is there anyone in the teams that hasn't had the ability to vote on this matter? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to close the vote. And with a vote of 32 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 3 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. Okay. Thank you, Humberto. Moving forward to the next item on our agenda here.
We're actually, so we're tabling this bill, so we're gonna look for a motion because they weren't able to.
Is there a motion to table the legislation? I see a motion from Holly. Do I see a second from Camden? All right. And is there any objection in the chamber to tabling this legislation to be discussed at a later date? All right. Humberto, could you mention the legislation so that people know?
Yeah, so basically, the bill that we're gonna table is to fund the Orthodox Christian Fellowship, which actually was on the consent agenda, but the Finance Committee requested to move it to the regular because they thought further discussion was needed. But unfortunately, the people on the club were sick today to present, like they weren't able to be here, and they would be the ones to be able to answer questions. So that's why we're tabling. And we would move to bill to fund Bassoon Club next.
Yeah. All right. So now having that knowledge, does anyone want to object to tabling? All right. Seeing no objections, we will move forward to Bill 25, a bill to fund Bassoon Club.
All right. So we have 2 presenters from the Bassoon Club here to talk with us a little. And just FYI, before everyone starts leaving during announcements, we do have a guest that will speak just for 2-3 minutes on a very important matter happening on campus to get more senators involved. But it'll just be like 2-3 minutes after this presentation. But yeah, thank you. With that, I'll leave you with the Bassoon Club.
All right. Thank y'all for coming. You'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome. Good evening, y'all. My name is Megan Gordon, and I'm the president of Bassoon Club.
And my name's Olivia Van Winkle, and I'm the treasurer of Bassoon Club.
And tonight we're going to tell you a little bit about the club and some funding that we're requesting.
We are an organization dedicated to developing bassoonists of all levels and making an impact on the KU community. We meet every Tuesday at 1 p.m. and work on performance, professional issues, as well as mental and physical wellness. We host several events, including the KU Double Reed Festival, which is the event we are requesting funding for, as well as middle and high school demo days, bassoon ensemble, several community events, and more projects that are in the works. We have members that study a very wide variety of topics, including music, engineering, English, education, biology, sports management, and psychology. I'm actually a double major myself in music and biology. And we also have lots of members that aren't primarily bassoonists or even music majors at all. They just enjoy, they just join for enrichment and as a hobby.
Okay, so a little bit about the money that we're asking for. We're asking for it for an event we do called KU Double Reed Day. This is an annual event for bassoonists and oboists all across the Midwest. We host it every year except for last year because of COVID. We couldn't have it in person due to aerosol concerns. So we have different events, including presentations, and this year we're doing one on community importance of music and audition preparation. We have a double reed ensemble, we have a lunch with colleagues, master classes, and a recital. And this year our recital is going to have music from marginalized composers that are Black American composers. And this year we are bringing in Sue Hyman from the National Symphony Orchestra. And just some background about her, she is one of the leading female bassoonists in the United States right now, and she is considered one of the best teachers in the United States at this moment. And this is both a community building event within our profession as well as top tier professional development and allows for us to do some networking. So here's some pictures from past events. Up top, we have the Double Reed Ensemble, and at the bottom, a chamber music group that are playing. And here are some pictures of some of our past guest artists at master classes. On the left, we have Mr. Winstead, who is the former principal bassoonist of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and worked at the University of Cincinnati. And on the right, we have Professor Lyman, who is the professor at the University of Michigan. And here you can see them giving master classes to past KU students. So what would the funding go towards? We're asking for a $1,000 honorarium for our guest, Sue Hyman, so that she can come and teach a 2-hour masterclass, perform that recital, and other general expenses that she is asking money for. Just the overall impact of KU Double Reed Day, this event is open to all students regardless of their membership in bassoon club. So if anyone just wants to come out for a portion of the day to see the recital or the whole day, they are welcome to come. It's a full day of free musical enrichment and education with world-renowned musicians. And the recital this year, again, has works from marginalized and underrepresented composers, as well as some new compositions by female composers. And it's an opportunity for networking and building relationships with professionals and a day of community with other musicians and professionals across the Midwest. And it's really important that we have this in person this year since we weren't able to do it last year, and music is such an in-person event. And so here's a picture from our last conference in 2019 with Keith Bunke from the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And as you can see, this is a really important community event for our club. So thank you. And does anyone have any questions?
All right. Do you have any questions? Yes, from here. I'm sorry. Could you remind me of your name? Cass. Yes. Gosh. It's always fun learning new faces with masks.
Could you go into detail what some of the other general expenses are that she's asking for?
Yeah, so she hasn't given us any specifics about it, but what generally happens with our guest artists is that they just request a set fund in the form of an honorarium from wherever they're going. And some of the things that they specifically are billing us for are the masterclass and recital, because typically those things, if it wasn't through a university, they would be charging $100 to $200 an hour. And so this is just a set fund that's saying how much she wants to be paid for her services and performances.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, we are out of time. So do I see a motion to extend or a motion to call to question? Motion from Holly? All right, and do I have a second? I see a second from Farzad. All right, and so is there any objection in the chamber to moving to a vote on this matter? And or on the teams? All right, seeing no objections, we'll go ahead and move forward to a vote. Yes, if you would like to approve the bill. No, if you would not like to approve the bill, and abstain if you would like to stay out of this vote. All right, is there anyone in the chamber who hasn't had the ability to vote on this issue? And or on the teams? All right. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close this vote. And with a vote of 32 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. Thank you all for helping getting through this business tonight here. I will now open up the space for announcements, the first one coming from our Chief of Staff.
Yeah, so we have, before everyone heads out, we have a special guest here with us, and it's a couple of members actually from the Latin American Graduate Organization, and their president is going to just share a couple of updates that have been happening in the school in regards to like certain departments, and just how we can, as a Senate, work together to help this. So, Sylvia, would you like to come to the podium? Or from, if you are more comfortable.
Either that or we could pass the mic down.
That's true, okay.
Whichever, this one's, yeah. All right.
Good evening, everyone. That's not, maybe use this mic.
Press here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Silvia Sanchez. I'm a graduate student in anthropology. I am the president of the Latin American Graduate Organization. And with me are Taylor Tappan from Geography, member of LAGO, and Daniel Bagheri from Anthropology, treasurer of LAGO. We're here today to talk about our growing concern for Area Studies Center and the lack of institutional support that we observe for them. On October 6th, we learned that there was an initiative to move the programs, the master's programs in Latin American Studies and the BA, to global and international studies. And we're wondering what's going to happen with the Center for Latin American Studies if it runs out of programs. And then on October 20th, we learned that the director of the Center of Latin American Studies actually resigned, citing financial constraints and lack of institutional support. So we're really worried. We've been supported by the Center for Latin American Studies in multiple ways. It is an interdisciplinary place. All area study centers are for conducting research. They bring people from all over campus. They have a lot of affiliated faculty and students. And we would run out of those spaces if the centers run out of institutional support. The centers offer a lot more than programs, and so enrollment numbers cannot be the one indicator by which their success is measured. We're really worried because these spaces have been also historically really important for faculty and students of color, and we're worried that we're going to lose those spaces. And there was another point. We bring a lot of money. We, as part of, I feel I'm part of the Center of Latin American Studies, and that's why I say we. But the Center for Latin American Studies brings a lot of money from Title VI to teach less commonly taught languages. They give a lot of scholarships. They give a lot of funding for doing international research, especially at the exploratory level. So people who haven't learned how to write a grant before, people who haven't done any research abroad, don't know how to establish collaborations abroad, this is the spaces where they learn how to do it. And with those programs moving to global and international studies, what is going to be the home of all these spaces, and especially as this area studies lose institutional support? We are at the time in the process of finding out more information. We're trying to reach out to student organizations who might be affected, and we're trying to find more information. But we want to encourage you today as student senators to reach out to your departments, to your student organizations, and to your contacts. What is happening with area studies centers, and how can we best support them?
All right, and I saw people raising hands. I guess we could have some questions. These are primarily announcements, but yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Martine, did you have an announcement?
No, I wanted to ask a question, and it might be good for the Student Senate to hear this, but how will people who are doing research who are part of the Latin American Center, Study Center, who have grants, how will they be affected, those students, if the university continues to really kind of dismiss your guys' concerns? So, yeah, could you speak to how students with grants and scholarships would be affected?
Thanks for the question.
And it is unclear at this point what would happen with those grants. Usually, these grants come from national competitions, and the Center for Latin American Studies has been very competitive and has been getting those grants, continuously in cycles of sometimes 4 or 6 years. I'm not sure. So what happens is, if we lose institutional support, we're no longer competitive for those. And more senior graduate students like us have benefited extensively from these grants. We build our dissertation projects based on them. But incoming students, the junior one, the ones who are entering the programs might not have these opportunities in the future if the centers are no longer competitive for them.
Yeah, feel free.
Can I speak to that as well?
Yeah, if you want to grab the mic or.
If we continue with the undercutting of area studies, especially for CLACS, you should know that CLACS is the only area center of its kind that is Title VI granted and the federal government in the entire Midwest. So we are the only Midwestern institution that actually has a center dedicated to Latin American studies, and our library is indicative of that. I mean, one of the reasons we're really competitive in the national level is because we have a really strong Latin American focus, and we have a library to prove it, and we have a center to prove it, which has been offered a Title VI funding. So if we continue with the continued cutting of budget, we're probably going to lose the Title VI funding, and this is one of the reasons why Martha, who's our director, has resigned recently.
Awesome.
On that risk.
Thank you for that.
And
Right.
I just wanted to mention, whilst Lago is talking about CLACS, all the area study centers are facing the same issue. It's just CLACS is important to these guys, and also CLACS is the only center where a director resigned their position because of it. So all of the area studies, the Center for East Asian and European Studies, Kansas African Studies Center, Center for East Asian,
Russia, East Europe, and Eurasia. East Asia.
You're thinking of Russian.
East Asian Studies. Well, I used to
Oh,
work
yeah.
there. And CLACS, all of them are affected, and it's basically because the institution and the Board of Regents think that the only things valuable about education are the money that it produces in the credit hours versus the actual research that comes out of it. It's been very clear. We saw that when we met with the Board of Regents last week. So that's why it's a big issue, because it's kind of looking at education should be monetary based rather than the actual value of the education itself. And that's really important that we know that distinction.
May I follow up on that specific point? As Holly mentioned, these sort of administrative shakeups and cuts to academic programs respond to directives from the Kansas Board of Regents to sort of eliminate programs with low enrollments. But a really important distinction to make between CLACS and the other area studies research centers and departments is that these are research centers, that they are not departments. They do offer academic programs, so you can get a bachelor's or a master's in Latin American studies, for example, but they're not a traditional department because they apply for federal funding. They're managed by interdisciplinary scholars, and so CLACS by itself, Latin American Studies, right, has 115 faculty members affiliated across campus from humanities, social science, STEM fields, and so evaluating an area studies center, research center, based on student enrollment really is nonsensical. And furthermore, cutting these programs has no financial gain for KU because the area studies centers are funded primarily by the federal funding that they pull in from Department of Education. And so it's sort of an example of KU shooting itself in the foot, so to speak, by cutting this program and making it less competitive for the next cycle of federal funding. That's right. So yeah, these are not departments. These are interdisciplinary research centers that will no longer be competitive if KU doesn't demonstrate its institutional support.
Do you want to mention the resolution as well?
We are working on a resolution. We have a draft. We've been working on it with members of Lago, and we've been working on a resolution to speak up about what's happening with area study centers. Lago has been working on it to author it, and we have also been working with other student organizations and reaching out all over campus.
So if people are interested in signing on the resolution, reach out to one of those.
Giovanna?
I just wanted to know, you mentioned that they wanted to move from master's program to fully international. Would you mind, elaborating if you know, what was the distribution of the university for doing so? Was it all just monetary or was it was mostly
enrollment numbers, and what they want to do is unify a program in global and international studies with specialization in the different regions.
But GIST is getting cut too, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I saw Stuart's hand up.
It was something very specific. I'll ask later.
Okay. And yeah, this is sort of extending a bit for announcements. Yeah, Camden? Motion to adjourn. All right. Do I see a second? All right. I see a second from Stuart. Okay. And with that, is there any objection to adjourning this session? Either here on the Teams.
Thank you so much.
All right. Seeing no objection to adjournment, this meeting is officially adjourned. All right, thank you all for joining us on the Teams and on the live, and we're going to go ahead and end the meeting now.